Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelly. If you're new here and never seen my face before, I'm also the maker, creator, and educator behind the Nina Jo Sewing Collective. And in today's video, I have another free bag making tutorial for you guys. This is probably one of the most made, most used, most gifted, most adjustable bags that you can make, and I'm talking about the Boxy Bag. When I tell you I have made this bag no less than 100 times in all different fabrics, whether it was quilt cotton, I've done them in cork, I've done them in vinyl, I've done them in clear vinyl. I've done this bag in so many different materials, and that is what I love about it. It's so customizable, from the materials to the size. You've probably seen them itty bitty all the way up to very large cosmetic size pouches. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you exactly how to do that, exactly how to customize it. Matter of fact, let me just give you a sneak peek of the bag that we are going to be making today. This one. Y'all know this bandana fabric has been all over the place, and I actually bought some recently when I was visiting Dallas. I got it in a lot of different colors, and I felt like it would be really great to make this bag. I don't know if you can see the quilting, but it's there. I did large squares, but I definitely did a little bit of quilting. I'm gonna try a few more, and I'm gonna do different quilt patterns. I might try some straight lines, I might try some smaller squares. It does add a little bit of time to your project, but it does give it a little bit more dimension, variation, and style. So here's just a few others that I made. This is a vinyl. It's vinyl all the way around, and as you can see for this one, I just used one panel. I didn't even put two panels together, which it would have been tough to do in this material anyway. And all of them are waterproof canvas on the interior. Alright, I'm just going to show you two more, and then we're going to get into this tutorial. But here is another one. As you can see, I use vinyl on the bottom and a quilt cotton on the top. Also waterproof canvas on the inside. And here is another one. It's been sitting flat, but same thing. It is a vinyl on the bottom and a quilt cotton on the top. So as you can see, this bag is very customizable, and it's very easy to make. It is super beginner friendly. So y'all, without further ado, let's jump right on in this tutorial. Alright y'all, so here are all the supplies that we'll be using to make the Boxy Bag today. One thing that I really love about Boxy Bags is that it's such a modifiable bag to make. You can make them in all sizes, dimensions, and materials for that matter. I've seen them made in two different ways. This is one, as well as you've probably seen a long template with boxes cut out on the template. That's another way to make this bag. I've done it that way. I actually had a template that I used to use when I made these bags day in and day out, but I could not find it. But anyway, this is the easiest way and the most beginner friendly way, in my opinion, to make this bag. So like I said, the dimensions here are 15 by 12, but you can make it bigger or smaller. I'm using a cotton fabric for this one. This is a cotton fabric in a bandana print, and I've already interfaced it. I've used a SF101 first, and then I went ahead and put a Fusible fleece on top because, like I said, I wanted it to have a pillowy feel. I've also already added my label, and hopefully you can see, looks like you can see, but I've already quilted it. I wanted to quilt a bag, which I've never done before, and so I went ahead and added quilted lines at the diagonal going in both directions. And all I did was use my ruler and create lines. You can actually still see some of the remnants of the chalk here, but I used my ruler and I drew chalk lines in both directions. I sewed it with a 4.5 stitch length, and I measured 2.5 inches going in each direction. So that is the exterior fabric. As far as the lining fabric, I'm going to be using a nylon waterproof fabric, and I have not interfaced it yet. It's a little bit heavier than, say, a quilt cotton, but it's also a little bit thinner than like a waterproof canvas or a canvas. So the jury's still out. I haven't interfaced it yet, but I might, because I really want a soft, pillowy, fluffy bag. I have my zipper here and I'm gonna be using zipper tape. I've already added the zipper pull, and this measures the same width as this bag, which is 15 inches. I've also already prepped my pull tabs, which are gonna go right across the zipper, so it'll help you open up the bag. And for this, I cut a piece of fabric. It was 10 inches long by 3.5 inches wide, and I folded it and folded it again and sewed down both sides, and then I just cut it in half. All right, as far as our supplies, we have our handy dandy clips. Y'all know how much I love those. I'm gonna be using a Microtex needle for this project. I often use Microtex needles when I make bags, unless I'm doing like a leather or a heavier material, and then I may switch it out, but I usually keep Microtex needles for bag making. Also, I have some double-sided tape. This is not a mandatory supply. However, if I am going to be installing a zipper, I always use this tape because it helps keep everything in place and it helps keep your zipper perfectly aligned and professional looking. Next up, I have my chalk pen here. I don't think I'll be needing this. I've already used this, but this is the chalk pen that I used when I made my lines. And lastly, I'm going to be using this Gutermann Mara thread in this coordinating color, so it's going to match perfectly. All right, so since the panels are already prepped with the label, the quilting, as well as the interfacing, it's time to go ahead and prep it. And the first thing we need to do is add our zipper. So I'm grabbing my handy dandy double-sided tape, and you guys, this is a really thin tape. This tape is 1/4 of an inch, so it is super thin, but it's also super strong. So all right, now that I have the paper off, I'm just going to lay it as flush as possible with the top of this panel. I'm actually just going to remove this zipper pull to get it out the way to make adding this zipper tape a lot easier. All right, now that I have that, I'm just gonna grab my lining panel, more tape. I'm actually gonna grab tape that's a little bit wider. I don't really need this small of a tape for this project. All right, so I have some tape that's a little bit wider. I'm gonna go ahead and lay this down as well. I'm going to line it up flush with the top of that zipper piece. All right, I'm just going to remove this paper, and I'm going to lay this down right side to right side. And for this, the matte side is the right side. I'm gonna go ahead and lay that down and stick that on there and get it as straight as possible. All right, so now I'm gonna take this back to my sewing machine using my zipper foot, and I'm gonna sew at 3/8 inch seam allowance. All right, y'all, I'm back from the sewing machine. I have both of these panels sewn down all nice and neatly. So now we're gonna do the same thing on the other side of this zipper tape. So of course I'm going to grab my double-sided tape and go ahead and add a line directly to the top of the zipper, lining it up as best I can. All right, now I'm gonna grab the other exterior panel. I'm going to lay this right side to right side and also line this up with that zipper. All right, now I'm gonna flip it over and do the same thing all over again, but with the lining fabric. So using my double-sided tape. And like I said, this double-sided tape, it's not mandatory. I just find it a lot easier to use the tape than those clips, because you could also clip this in place, right? You could put this here and you could use the clips and clip this all the way down. I just find the tape is a lot easier for me to use, especially when it comes to the sewing machine. Because once you go to the sewing machine with that tape, nothing's gonna move. You don't have to worry about removing clips, slowing down. You can just sew a straight line without having to worry about much. So it's one of those tools that is not necessary, but I highly recommend. All right, now that I've taken that off, I'm gonna do this exact same thing. Let me turn this around, making sure that it's right side to right side. And I'm going to line this up with the top of this zipper tape. There is one con about using double-sided tape though, because it can make your needle gummy over time. So if you're gonna be using double-sided tape, I would recommend getting some alcohol wipes and keeping those in your sewing room so that you can wipe that needle off if it starts to get too gummy. And you'll know if your needle starts to get too gummy because it'll start to stick and your sewing machine will start acting a little weird. All right, I have that all taped down. Now I'm gonna go back to my sewing machine and I'm gonna sew across here at 3/8 inch seam allowance. All right, so I am back from the sewing machine. We have our top stitching done. Now it is time to add our zipper pull. And I'm gonna add it this side. You guys, I've seen a lot of people try to add zipper pulls, and I know it feels like it makes sense to add it from the back, but when you put it on your zipper tape, you actually add it from the front. And I'm gonna show you exactly what I mean, because I know that probably doesn't make any sense. But what you do is you grab your zipper tape and you take one end of the pull, so like this, and you kind of slide it in there, and then you just want to hold it tight. Like my fingers right here are holding this zipper tape really tight so nothing moves. And I'm just gonna open this up to give myself a little bit of slack, and then I am going to push the other side in there to where they're about even right there, and they're both just kind of barely hanging in there. I'm using my hands to hold them tight, but you're going to use this finger, your right thumb and index finger, and you're going to push that on. And once it's on there, you're just going to grab the actual pull and continue to pull it through. And that is how you add a zipper pull. And if that was too hard to get, just let me know. I will do another tutorial where I just do that. But I just kind of wanted to show y'all because I've seen people try to add them the other way. And it's funny because, you know, at one point I was there as well. But after 8 years of making bags, I kind of have it down to a science. All right, now go ahead and grab your tabs and your handy dandy clips and go ahead and fold this in half. You're just gonna clip it in place right on top of that zipper, having it flush with the edges of this fabric. All right, now that I have those in place, I'm gonna go to the sewing machine one more time and I'm just going to baste those down. Being careful because I have added a lot of bulk right here. So just going slow to make sure that your machine can handle it and you don't break any needles. All right, you guys, I am back again from the sewing machine. I have my tabs added on both sides. And so now it's time to just go ahead and put your exterior right side to right side as well as the lining fabric. And we're not gonna worry about anything else right now besides the edge of both of these. So grab a few clips and you're just gonna clip alongside the long edge of the exterior fabric, because we're gonna go to the sewing machine and we are going to sew this closed using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Also making sure we backstitch at the beginning and the end. All right, and then on this side, we are gonna do the same thing. However, we are going to leave a hole on the lining fabric. So I'm just going to use just a few clips here. So 2 on this side, because I'm only going to sew from here to about here, and then on this side about here to about here, leaving a good 5 inches so that we can turn our bag or birth our bag. I have the bottom all sewn together, as well as the lining with the hole in the middle. So next thing we're going to do is we are going to line up our seams. So we are going to turn everything like so. Let me grab my clips. All right, so we're gonna line up all of our seams. We're gonna line this bottom seam up with that zipper. So I'm going to be putting this seam right here. I'm gonna be lining that up right there with that zipper and grabbing a few clips. What I'm going to do is only clip together the exterior for now. So on this side, I'm gonna clip, together the exterior. On this side, I will do the same thing. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it and do the exact same thing on the other side. All right, next I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the lining. I'm going to line that seam up with the other seams as well as that zipper right there. And then I'm gonna grab more clips and clip the lining together. And then I'm gonna do this exact same thing on the other side. And so like I said, there's a few different ways to make a boxy bag. I feel like this way is a little bit easier. It does get tricky when you try to close up this hole right here because you do have to go through all of these seams. But if you go slow, there shouldn't be too much of an issue. And then there's less work to do. I feel like there's a lot of bulk right here, which can be tricky, but overall, it's the quickest way to complete a boxy bag. I've seen people sew all four layers together, or well, the lining and the exterior when they do this, and then they bind the bag. I just feel like as the bag gets thicker, like bulkier, that can be tough as well. And then there's more sewing you have to do over the thick parts instead of just having one thick part. I hope that makes sense. All right, so next up, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our sewing machine. We're gonna sew from here to here, here to here. So pretty much all on each side, there should be 4 times where you stop and start sewing. So right here, you should stop and start sewing, back stitching here, and you'll do the same thing on the other side. But once you're finished, there will be a little bit of a hole, right? Because we've sewn from here to here, here to here. There will be a little bit of a hole on both sides. But once you have those parts done, you're gonna go again under the sewing machine and you're just going to sew from where you stopped here to where you stopped on this side. And go over it twice. So go once and then back stitch, taking your time. Use your hand wheel if you have to, but this will close up that hole and help reinforce those stitches, especially since this is where our tab is and there will be pulling on that tab. So go over it at least twice, 3, 4 times if you have to. That's probably what I'm gonna do. All right, be right back. All right, so I forgot to mention that we are gonna be using a 3/8 inch seam allowance when we sew these parts together. And I just wanted to show you how I'm sewing. Again, I'm going to do each of these little 4 pieces individually, and then I'm going to sew across here. You very well could put this together and sew it like that. I feel like you do a little bit more work here and you get a cleaner bag, and then you're working with less bulk. because depending on your materials, you want to not include as much of the interfacing in the seam allowance, but it can get very bulky if you do it this way. So this is how I do it. Okay, one side down, 7 more to go. All right, so now we are to my favorite part of making the bag, which is actually boxing the corners. So I went ahead and pulled out my ruler, and I just want to show you guys what your bag should look like. All of these should be separated. It does take a little bit longer at the sewing machine than just going straight across, but like I said, I really like doing it this way. We do also have to box each one of these corners individually, but once it's all done, I'll show you why I like it this way, because now the lining is not stuck to the exterior. You can pull it out, you can clean it, and I feel like you just get a little bit more, it's a lot more accessible, the interior of this bag. All right, so because I made this bag kind of big, I'm also going to make the boxes pretty big. So I am going to do 2.5-inch boxes. So what that means is I'm gonna grab my 2.5-inch ruler, and I'm going to draw a box from the seam line. So just like this, I'm just gonna line it up, draw the box. I'm gonna do this 8 times. All right, so next up we are cutting out all of the squares that we just made. So like I said, this is a little bit more time consuming, but it's a cleaner finish. All right, so now that all that is cut, what we're going to do is now we are officially boxing these corners. So I prefer to cut out the box instead of pulling everything here and cutting across. I feel like you get a straighter line when you do it that way. You do cut into the seam, so you have to be very careful about ripping everything. So now that I have it like that, I'm gonna grab my clips, open the seams. All right, I'm just gonna open up those seams, grab the clips, and clip everything in place. And I like to work with the exterior fabric first, just because it's a little bit stiffer. All right, now that all 4 sides of the exterior is done, now it's time to do the lining. You know, actually, I'm gonna go to the sewing machine and I'm gonna sew those down so that it'll be easier for me to move those out of the way. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, y'all, so I've sewn up the exterior corners, and now I've already clipped together the lining corners. Let me just add one more clip right here. All right, so I've already pinned together the lining corner, so now I'm just gonna go back. It was a lot easier to access those corners now that I can move this fabric out of the way. So I'm gonna go back to the sewing machine, sew across these, and then we'll be ready to turn this bag right side out. Everything is sewn together. Now it's time to turn it right side out. All right, now it's time for the big reveal. I just like to push everything out while my hand is all the way still inside the bag. I'm just gonna trim all of these pieces right here. And see, our bag is almost done. All we need to do is close up that lining. And we did the 2.5 inch cuts, but if you wanted your bag to be shorter and not so tall right here, you could do 2, 1.5, or even 1. That would just make it a lot longer. But this is what we're looking like. So I'm just going to pull this out. I'm going to go ahead and trim the excess threads, and then I'm going to, since this is a nylon, I'm just going to finger press it. I'm not going to add any heat, but I'll do my best at finger pressing it, adding just a few clips in here, and then I'm going to go back to the sewing machine and sew across here. Okay, and just like that, we have a brand new, very cute, very useful, very giftable boxy bag. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If there's anything I left out, if you have any additional questions, please leave them in the comment box. I do respond to every single question. And until next time, y'all, happy sewing.